Ah, yes. We are live, ladies and gentlemen, Monday night, 7:30 Central Standard Time, that is. I am Chris Knight. This is the Real Review 3000, and it is the gospel according to Chris. Craziness ensues. We talk about all sorts of stuff, and tonight should be a polarizing topic. And with me tonight, the man who suggested it, a great topic, I admit, is the Chad. The Chad, please tell everybody where they can find you, what you're about, and all of that good stuff.
Well, basically, you can find me on SBL, where you can hear my lovely singing voice, as well as on YouTube, where I just keep sort of a bit of a blog about my typical sports adventures, like whitewater rafting or hiking through the Rockies. And that's going to be in the description.
Okay. Yeah. I have your YouTube channel in there and the S Mule. If people want to find you on Twitter, they know who you are. That's basically
Exactly.
how it works. So, but tonight we're going to talk about the legendary sportscaster up in Canada, Don Cherry, and he was recently fired for making some interesting comments. And let's do this just so people can see this. I'm trying to see, make sure we have how many people we got, because I don't want to play it necessarily without too many people here. We'll probably wait just a minute. But let's just talk about it. Making comments basically saying that expats or people from other countries who come to Canada need to wear poppies for Remembrance Day, and not just some, all across the board. People need to spring for a small amount to wear a poppy for Remembrance Day because of the
Basically,
people who fought. What was that?
a quarter.
Yes. And they should do it because the people who fought for Canada fought for the way of life that they came to Canada for.
Yeah.
And that alone should make it so they should be honoring those people.
Yeah.
Now, let's be honest about this. He wasn't necessarily so polite, or and his etiquette wasn't so easygoing as that.
It never was.
No. So let's talk first off. Let's just go off here and let's talk about Don Cherry a little bit. Let's talk about who he is, where he came from, how old he is. Let's just go into the person real
Right.
quick. So why don't you tell everybody about Don Cherry, a little bit about his backstory?
So Don Cherry has been involved in hockey pretty much since he became an adult. From from at not 20, for his very early 20s, he played hockey for American leagues. Also, I believe he played for Canada, and he has basically won championships and awards, been recognized as a great player. He left the sport to do some coaching. Since the 80s, he's been a sportscaster for a first period 7-minute show called Hockey Night in Canada, which runs on CBC. Don Cherry's speaking matter, I've always called it as he's to sports what Rush Limbaugh is to politics. He's polarizing, he's opinionated, he's loud, he gives 0 Fs, and he's never tactful. But I think this is why a lot of people like him, because of these qualities, because this is something you expect in a radio personality or in a sportscaster.
I would liken him almost to, I mean, early Howie Long when he first became a commentator. Howie Long was kind of brash about things, and I'm thinking Charles Barkley. Charles Barkley's always been, rather brash. He's not the most
Yeah.
likable person. That's what I would liken him to. But sportscasters in general say things that don't always come across properly. They're not a sportcaster. A sportscaster is different than, let's say, a radio DJ or a television newscaster, because those people have to kind of learn how to do interviews and things like that. And when you're a sportscaster, you're kind of given your free reign to make your show that you're doing your show. Think of it like I guess Jim Rome. If you've
Yeah.
ever heard of Jim Rome is very polarizing, but he's also very controversial. And Sean just mentioned that he's mad that I'm covering up his picture. I'm sorry, Sean. I'll work on how to make that work out better. So we'll take care of that. But that's how. And Mad's Mama Bear, she makes a good point here. He says he's supposed to be loud, brash, and dressed weird. That's kind of his. That's kind of his character in a way. He is designed a certain way, partially by him, partially by the network, to appeal to a certain person, which is a hockey fan. And let's be honest, hockey fans are passionate, brash, rude, because I'm sorry, I've never met a hockey fan who is like, oh, I like that team and I like this team. If you're, especially up in Canada, hockey, God, you are for a team.
Yep.
And that's it. And I've seen fights in stands. I have seen fights on the ice. I've seen fights everywhere, and that's just the type of thing it is. And she's also, Mads also says Don Cherry was never polite, but firing him is un-Canadian.
I have to agree with that. So we're going to get into that in a little bit later, but we do want to cover both sides of this.
Yes, we're going to cover both sides of this and look at it. But let's continue down the line. So he got in. He's been brash. He speaks his mind. What else is what else defines Don Cherry?
Basically, his love for Canada. He's always been very patriotic. His love for animals. He's been a contributor to pet shelters. Like, if you know Don Cherry, you know he loves his dogs. He's an absolute pet person. And another thing would be his longtime friend and co-host, Ron McLean.
And we'll get into that too, because there's some words about that.
The more balanced between the two, the more mild, the more, let me give an opposing view to what this incredibly loud man is saying. The more mild. So and I've heard Ron tell Don Cherry to shut up on air. So it's not like he hasn't had a backbone too, but they've had a good working relationship for 30 years. So that's another thing and I believe, although I haven't been able to find stories on this is a rumor I've heard, that some years ago, Don Cherry once put his job on the line to save Ron's.
And, that's not uncommon. When you find that guy that you get along with in your show, you kind of do anything you can to work things out.
Right.
And to make sure that person's there too. And it doesn't matter then. Sometimes you look at it and says, well, if they value me, they're going to listen to me. And that's where a lot of people in the past have found out how much they're valued. Either they say, okay, well, we understand. Hold on. Let's see what we can do. Or they say, well, okay, if he's not here, you're not here. Well, have a good day. We'll talk to you later. We'll figure out what we're going to do about this. It's a really easy way to find out what they think of you. Now, if that happened, again, we will go into that a little bit later. But if he did fight, that was not how this ended. So we can talk about that. At least, let's put it this way. This happened, all of about a week and a half ago or something like that?
The hockey night in Canada when it went down was last Saturday.
Okay, yeah. So this is still relatively new, and at this point in time, Don Cherry is currently fired. Now, we can go in later and we'll talk about the possibilities of if he gets rehired or if they bring him back, which is always a possibility. But while we are talking about this, let's go to his comments really quick, and we will show what he said. I'm going to share the screen. Share the audio. I have to switch a couple things around here, so just give me a second here. Okay, so this is Don Cherry on the coach's corner, which is his intermission during the first period, right?
Yeah.
This is the show. Okay, so notice what they're wearing. They're wearing his co-host is wearing a round circle, but still the red poppy look is what they're doing. And this is what Don Cherry
I was
said.
talking to a veteran. I said, I'm not
Can you
going
hear
to
that?
run the poppy thing anymore because what's the sense? I live in Mississauga. Nobody wears, very few people wear a poppy. Downtown Toronto, forget it, downtown Toronto. Nobody wears a poppy. And I'm not going to. He says, wait a minute. How about running it for the people that buy them? Now, you go to the small cities, and the rows on rows, you people love, they come here, whatever it is, you love our way of life, you love our milk and honey, at least you could pay a couple of bucks for poppies or something like that. These guys pay for your way of life that you enjoy in Canada. These guys paid the biggest price. I was talking to...
Sorry. So that's what he said, and we might show this a little bit later, so I'll leave it up. But you people, I think, let's be honest here. The big problem was more than likely his way of saying it.
It always is with Don. For the record, I want it to be said that I don't think I've ever really agreed with anything Don Cherry's ever said. But it's hard to not respect him because of how passionate and sincere he is. So there's always been that my family loves him, my parents loved him, so I had to grow up watching him, but I don't think I ever really took to him.
Okay.
So, but at the same time, I could see why other people liked him, and I left it at that.
Well, you see, like I said, I brought up Jim Rome earlier. I like Jim Rome just because he says stuff that makes you think, man, that's like the crazy uncle that comes over to Thanksgiving. Oh, the Browns are going to win the Super Bowl. What? No, they're not. You know, or oh, the I don't know, just pick a team that sucks right now in baseball. You know, like Miami the Marlins are going to win the World Series. It's the guy that comes up with these crazy opinions, but the thing is when you listen to him, it's not necessarily that he's saying something crazy and opinionated. It's the fact that he's making you think, because he wants somebody to react to something. So I think he's looking for a reaction here, but he wants people to rally behind not him, not what he's saying, but about the country. Because this is either on or right around Remembrance Day, which is your guys' Veterans Day. Yeah, okay. So on Remembrance Day, which is your Veterans Day, for lack of a better word for people who don't know.
For the Americans.
Yeah. And it's not necessarily something that, like in this country, when we get to Veterans Day, we always have, the newscast at the end shows all the people who work for the news that are veterans. They show the pictures of all the veterans. They have people send stuff in. We constantly show this stuff. Now, do we have anybody that goes on and says, well, everybody needs to put the American flag out on their doorstep or wear a pin that says America? Do we have anybody that says that? No, we don't. But there is something to be said for people coming to a country, expats coming to a country, be it United States, be it Canada, Mexico, Germany, England, France, wherever you want to go. If you're an expat, there is something to be said of honoring that country's traditions. And because of that, if a person says that, especially a person like Don Cherry, who has a platform to say such a thing, should he be fired, or should this be something, it's a teachable time to say, okay, Don, we understand you're a little bit, off your rocker. You like to say stuff that's polarizing and controversial, but you need to watch how you're approaching this. You don't say you people, you don't call a person out by their race, color, creed, religion, any of that stuff. And by saying you people, you are automatically pointing to a group. Exactly. Now, yes, who is that group exactly? You can argue that, but the point is it is a select group. You're saying non-Canadians who are living in Canada,
non-Canadians, or as some would take it, non-whites, or there's a lot of different ways something like that can be taken. Sorry.
I'm sorry. I was just going to say he has an open-ended statement that, however you take it,
Yeah,
you can't tell that person they're wrong because they took it that way.
exactly.
And I think that's where we're talking is that that the people in Canada, the expats, the people coming to Canada, don't like to be pointed at, and the culture, the people around that are there right now are highlighting this as a teaching moment, but a pretty strong teaching moment.
Well, it's not even that. I mean, believe it or not, Canada has a lot of the same problems as the US, including racial profiling by the police. There are many people who have been harassed, pulled over, mistreated, and have been prejudiced against themselves
Mm-hmm.
and their families, and have heard you people during those moments. And so the offense they feel is not just cultural, but familial. And you can't say to them, that's wrong, because it's a sincere hurt. It's a sincere amount of grief that they have towards that statement. And so it needs to be respected. And that's not something anyone should ever deny. That someone who has felt that way should ever be told they're wrong to feel that way.
Yeah. You know, people who are expats are under constant attack. Let's be honest. They're under constant attack. Now, there's a right way to do it, and there's a wrong way. I'm sure you guys have illegal immigrants there. We have them here. And then there's the people who fight for years and years to go through the process. And I'm not sure what your process is there for naturalization, but it takes a minute here in the United States. Nobody's under the impression that it's a 5-second turnaround, sign your paper, boom, you're here. But there's those people who do fight to learn the customs, to find out about the traditions and to learn about the history of a country, and then go through all of that, take a test, and then they're naturalized citizens. I think that's also a point here is that the people who have done all that still have to feel like there's some bit of stake in it for them. There has to be something in it for them that they personally feel a connection with this. And when they come to another country, should a person coming to another country be expected to honor the people who fought for that country? Because they don't understand exactly what they went through. They don't understand those traditions. And it is kind of a culture shock sometimes. And for somebody to be screaming it on TV, or maybe not screaming it, but to be putting it out there on TV and saying, you people, you got to do this, and what is it to you? $2, wear a poppy, blah, 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 blah. When it comes across in that tone, and let's be honest, is this really about them feeling like they're being forced or being told they have to do something to be there, that by some reason there's a price to pay to be there?
Well, keep in mind, my ability to understand the offense that many are taking is limited. I'm very much born and bred Canadian, so my ability to understand this is very limited. And I'm not going to pretend to say or speak for other people.
Mm-hmm.
But where I take it is this: then absolutely, you know what? You come to a place to settle down, to build a new life, and all of a sudden there's someone on the TV that you may feel is singling you out or something or other. Sure, it's very easy to take offense, and perhaps and very likely even normal.
Yeah, and I mean, looking at the other side of it, looking at the expats and immigrants on that side of things, how would you feel if even just something simple as your culture in Canada and our culture here in the United States are fairly similar. There's
Yeah.
not a ton of difference. But you come down here and then suddenly all of a sudden people are saying, "Where's your American flag? It's Veterans Day. Why
Yeah.
aren't you wearing it?" Well,
Yeah.
it, it is kind of like a point blank reminder that you don't belong here. You're different, and you should follow these rules. Is it not?
I
And,
would
and
definitely
how,
agree.
how
I would absolutely agree with that.
and how would you feel about that?
Absolutely. That's a no-brainer. You'd feel excluded. You'd feel shunned. You feel left out. Even mad.
Yeah. And then the way I always look at it is that you go to another country, and if you make the decision to move there,
Mm-hmm.
you go there because you believe it's better than where you're at. Yeah,
Or there's an
let's go.
opportunity for you there.
Yeah, but still, there's something there, and you weigh all the opportunities and all the pros and cons, and then you say, okay, well, there's more there for me that's going to help me. I'm going to go. You don't expect there to be this wall of people to say, get out if you're not going to follow the rules or if you're not going to follow the way that we want things, meaning traditions and all that. That's not something you think about. You're looking at economics. You're looking at, maybe safety. Think about, Iraq, Kuwait, all the Middle Eastern countries right now. A lot of those, not everywhere. Let's be honest. There's civilized areas that are fairly safe, and you could argue just as safe as some of our cities because of murder problems here in the United States or something like that. But you look at all of that, you weigh all of that. Is there more there than there is here? And some people get visas and just decide I'm going to be there for a few years. Some people say, no, I'm going to make the move. I'm going to make the effort to become a citizen of that country because I like it. When you do that, you're not thinking of people chastising you for not following every little tradition. I mean, think about how the government handles, in our country at least, I don't know about in Canada, but our government takes every other day off because of a national holiday. and they pick just random things sometimes. Like for schools, here we have President's Day, so it honors like 3 different presidents' birthdays. But they'll take President's Day, they'll take Lincoln's birthday, Washington's birthday, Thomas and Jefferson's birthday. They take all these birthdays, and it'd be like somebody coming in and telling you, okay, you have to follow every holiday, you have to follow every holiday tradition, and go. But you just got here. How can you do that? And, oh, I'm sorry if I'm new to the country and I forgot the one tradition that you expect me to remember.
Yeah.
I mean, look at your calendar nowadays. Your calendar says Boxing Day on it, Remembrance Day, because so many different countries have different holidays or different days of remembrance and stuff. And they post them on there because, well, they're selling it to all those different countries. So a calendar will do it, but that doesn't mean that you have to go through and honor each thing because, well, it doesn't apply to your country. And it's difficult, and you have to understand that immigrants and expats can't necessarily be expected to follow every little tradition.
Agreed.
And there has to be amount of understanding from people that, I guess the way I would look at it is if he had an issue with this, the first thing he could have done to start the story is if he saw somebody without one, he could have bought a poppy for somebody and said, hey, do me a favor. Here, wear this. This is because of this. Mm-hmm. And then that story would have changed. But I mean, I'm not saying that he would have done that no matter what because of the way he is. But if he had started something like that and said, now I think everybody should wear these poppies. That's why today when I was walking around my house in the neighborhood, I bought a poppy for somebody that I saw that wasn't wearing one. And I said, hey, please do this because we're trying to remember our veterans. There's a way to handle this, a teaching way, the way to say, hey, I understand you may not know about this or you may not understand it, but why don't you do this?
I'm not sure I would support the buying a poppy for someone who doesn't wear one. That can be taken the wrong way as well. But
Well,
I think there's a million different ways this could have been phrased so much better. And I think,
there is.
and even Don Cherry has admitted to this.
Yeah. Speaking of that, let us go here and we'll talk just a second, make sure I don't have any ads in this. We'll show that right now if it wants to actually load up too. I love when these things take their time. Okay. All right. No, we're going to
And while you're doing that, we have the Wilk report asking who was Don Cherry and why was he fired?
Okay. Well, Chad, go ahead and give that explanation one more time, and we will play. I was just going to say we'll play the comments right after you say this again, and then we'll play what he said afterwards. All right. So I'll let you speak. Sorry.
So just to go through a very brief commentary, summary, I should say. Don Cherry is a Canadian sportscaster who has basically worked as a sportscaster for going on almost 40 years. Before that, he was a hockey coach. Before that, he was a hockey player. So he comes from a very old school era, the era of people like Bob Uecker, who have very strong opinions and who have been brought in to be very confrontational in their sportscasting. So a week ago, November 9th, he addressed wearing poppies to honor fallen Canadian soldiers on Remembrance Day, which is to us what Veterans Day is to Americans. And sad to say, he didn't phrase it very well. He basically said, you people come to Canada, you like our milk and honey. The least you can do is wear a poppy for those who paid for your way of life. That's not an exact quote, but unfortunately, the phrasing really, really struck home with a lot of people, as well as the way it was said. And part of the problem is that it's not really so much an issue with Don being tolerant. I'd say just the opposite. It's the fact that Don Cherry has always been very confrontational. And I don't think he has a soft-spoken setting on his voice box. He says something, he's going to be very loud and in your face. Sadly, that got taken in a very prejudiced way. And very understandably, too. So I don't want to make it clear that I'm not saying, oh no, no one should have taken it this way. No, it's absolutely understandably why people feel this way, and that's what we're discussing, how this came about.
Yeah. All right. Let's play the comments. This is what he did, and this was on Saturday night on Coach's Corner, which is a first period intermission show. And just basically what happened in the first period, what's going on in hockey, that type of show, right?
Right.
Okay. So this is Don Cherry and what he said exactly as it happened.
I was talking to a veteran. I said, I'm not going to run the poppy thing anymore because what's the sense? I live in Mississauga. Nobody wears, very few people wear a poppy. Downtown Toronto, forget it, downtown Toronto. Nobody wears a poppy. And I'm not going to. He says, wait a minute. How about running it for the people that buy them? Now, you go to the small cities, and the rows on rows, you people love you. They come here, whatever it is. You love our way of life. You love our milk and honey. At least you could pay a couple of bucks for poppies or something like that. These guys pay for your way of life that you enjoy in Canada. These guys pay the biggest price. I was talking to a.
Yeah, so that's what he said right there, people. And we'll just go ahead and we'll do. This is the comments that he made. How many days later?
This was Thursday.
Okay, so this is Thursday. And
a day after being forced out of his job, Don Cherry reflects on what he said and what he might have done differently.
So I think I should have used the word everybody instead of you people. If I had it to do over again,
I think I would have used everybody.
He's referring to his comments from Saturday that sparked all of this.
You people love you that come here, whatever it is. You love our way of life. You love our milk and honey.
The controversial commentator says he was willing to make amends, even go on the air to explain what exactly he meant. But Cherry says he never got that chance.
I had a meeting with Rogers, and it was a pretty good meeting with the two bosses, and I said I'd come on and explain and what I said and how I said it and what I should have said, and that wasn't good enough.
Cherry's firing has ignited a national debate. This petition to get him back on Coach's Corner, nearly 140,000 signatures and climbing.
We want to hear your thoughts on this. Don Cherry thrown out of Coach's Corner.
This CBC Calgary radio show inundated with callers eager to have their say.
He said, "You people." And I think his words were taken a little out of context. He disparaged these people, and I'm not surprised that there was going to be a whole bunch of backlash about this.
At the Hockey Hall of Fame, fans of Don Cherry are still fans.
He's a character. I don't know about the fire, and I don't know much about him other than, hey, I liked him when I saw him on TV.
He really helped me fall in love with the game, and from his outlandish suits to him kind of telling Ron McLean to shut up, it was just kind of never a dull moment.
Most of the guys that wear them are European or French guys.
The groups that Cherry targeted over the years now happy to see him gone.
So I'll be able now to watch hockey games on the English channel because I won't have to support Don Cherry.
As the debate rages on and Cherry shows some contrition, there's no indication that his exile is anything but final. Devin Haru, CBC News, Toronto.
Yeah, so right there, like
now, many of those people who support Don.
I love it doing that. Okay, but like I said, there's nothing saying that this is a final word, but he does admit it, and we're here. We're here in our countries, and this isn't the first time things like this have happened. I think you could take a lot of what Donald Trump says out of context and point blank call him a racist. Now, I don't necessarily believe he's a racist. I think much like Don Cherry, he says things, he's passionate about it, and maybe after the fact he stops and he says, well, wait a minute, might have wanted to say something differently. But they always, most of the time we forgive people.
How many times of us been in a situation said something differently, and there's a bit of reverb.
Oh yeah, hold on, we'll fix that really quick. Oh, all right, there we go.
But yeah, like I was saying, how many times have any of us been in a situation where we wish to God we could have said something different, used a different word, different tone? That's human nature. And I just wanted to be clear of that. You know what? Everyone that took such an extreme offense, hey, I get it. In a way, I'm on your side as much as I can be. I just think what happened and how far this has gone, which we're going to get into soon, has gone too far.
So you think this is being taken, like what, way out of context, too much out of context?
Not out of context. Don Cherry said what he said, and there had to be a reckoning. There had to be, especially in this day and age. There's no way there couldn't have been. I just think that things like his best friend for 35 years, Ron McLean, turning his back on him and disowning the comments. I think things like him being fired and very likely at this point not being able to get into the Hall of Fame after 65 years dedicated to the game. And I think the way the media has, for a week now, hounded the man nonstop, I think it's all gone too far. I think Rogers could have made much more of a deal, saying, you know what, you finish off this season and then we part ways. I think that. Go ahead.
Oh no, I was going to say I think something like that would have been very well thought of. They could have made a public comment that, we've sat down. I mean, have Rogers there, have the people in charge of CBC come out with Don Cherry very publicly, and John Cherry could have said, "Listen, I understand. I spoke poorly. I should have said everybody, not just people, not just certain people, and I want to apologize." And then Rogers could have come up and said, "Okay, guys, we've talked about this. We understand that this is going to be taken however you want to take it, but we have decided with Don Cherry that we're going to finish the season out with Don Cherry, and afterwards he will step down, or let Don Cherry say it. We've agreed that this is what I'm going to do." That would have probably been a lot better. One, the petitions and the division that this will cause, because understand, here in the United States, hockey is hockey, whatever. Some of us like it, some of us don't. It's not the national sport. You're talking about something like baseball or football is in the United States. Yeah. That when you start doing something, think of Colin Kaepernick. This is a Colin Kaepernick-like situation. You're either on one side of the fence or you're on the other. People are still up in arms about Colin Kaepernick not being in the NFL, but there's lots of people that say, "Listen, the guy's privileged. He's this, he's that. He's been offered jobs, and he says, well, I don't want to be on the practice squad. I want to be on the starting position or whatever." There's a huge a bunch of comments about it, and there's a divide in the fandom of football. Well, much like that, but in a bigger sense, hockey is that. And this has put a divide between both sides of it.
Oh, there is.
Don't you think?
Absolutely.
And so that says a lot, at least by saying, finish this season. You're telling the people who are against him, we're going to let him finish, and then he's gone. And you're telling the people who like him, he's going to finish, and then he's going to retire. But either way, you're still giving both people what you want.
Exactly.
I mean, the Premier of Quebec could have very well waited another however many games before the end of the season and then watched the English version, which I don't understand. Being the Premier of Quebec, he sounds quite French. I would have thought that he wouldn't want to watch an English version. He'd want to watch the French version, but whatever.
It's both a hockey thing and a Canadian thing. There's a pretty intense rivalry between the non-Quebec teams and the Quebec teams that Don Cherry has been a part of since forever. So Don Cherry has always had strong things to say about Quebec, both as a province and as a hockey team.
Yeah, and so this is what Red Shirt says. Don Cherry is largely considered a minor deity here in Canada. Yeah. I look at these comments and I look at the fact that there's a petition. In fact, I'm going to look this petition up really quick.
Yeah, that petition was at 1400 on Tuesday, a day after he was fired. So I can only imagine where it's at now.
So one, they're using change.org, which is, a big thing. Okay. So last Saturday, you said?
Yes.
Last Saturday. Okay. So we're going 1 week and 2 days now. So
he was fired on the 11th.
Okay. So on the 11th. So 7 days ago. And that right now, this is where this is at. This is one. I don't know. There's probably several. So 267,141 have signed. Let's get to 300,000. So I don't know if this is the same one that they showed.
I think it may have been.
We can go back. It describes him as a symbol of working class. Now that's an interesting way to bring it. There is something to be said that working class people aren't as eloquent with their words. And maybe that's his popularity. But when we were at near 300,000, will this, let's go with this route. Will this effectively cause a change in viewership on the CBC for hockey? And I don't know, is the CBC the hockey network? Is it like the one where most of the hockey games are on?
It's where the majority of Canadians tune into because they love Don Cherry.
Okay. And you see, that's the thing. So this could effectively change the viewership of a network.
Yes.
So, with that said, is it something that they're going to bring him back? Are they willing to bring him back? And and let's go with this route. If they bring him back, how do you bring a guy back like this? It said this.
So I don't know if they can, honestly. I think that once the decision was made, I don't think there's any going back.
Okay.
At least, no. I cannot imagine any going back after he's been fired. Now, I do think that I know a lot of people will want him to come back. I do too. But that's the reality. After that ink is dried, and after your target audience has been mollified, I think it would cause even more controversy to reverse it. Now, Don Cherry is opening up I did see that Don Cherry is starting a new show on his own. And I think he will have tons of support. But just going back for a moment, quick question. I'm not as fluent in tracking things on Twitter. Is there a way to track the latest, how many times a hashtag has been used?
You can put in a hashtag. It says explore. What's the hashtag?
Cancel Rogers. That is the company that fired Don Cherry.
Well, there is a at Cancel Rogers.
I'm not surprised.
There is a thing now. I will search for hashtag Cancel Rogers. And let's see here. I see. Well, put it this way. There's a ton.
Oh yeah.
I'm looking at this scroller here. I'm not seeing an end to it. So,
Yeah,
I guess what I would do is
going to result in a loss of viewership. Oh yes, there will.
Normally it'll give me like a number, but I guess it's not giving me a number of how many times it's been used today. But I mean, so where is he? Where is he doing this? Is it on TV or is it on like online? What is he doing? How is he doing it?
Just a second.
Okay.
Digital Airways. Looks like he's going to be online. He's launching a weekly podcast called The Grapevine.
Okay.
And it's going to be on Spotify tomorrow.
Okay. So if you think about it, if this gets all of the viewership and all of the, if they're podcasts, I mean, I know podcasts, some people say, this is a podcast, but I call this a stream. There's podcasts that I think are just recorded voice. But however, if that gets this viewership or listenership of huge numbers, is Rogers going to do this, or do you think another network, and I don't know who that would be because we don't have Canadian TV here, of course.
Right.
Do you think another network might say, you know what, we'll weather the storm because in the long run we're going to win?
That is hard to say, man. It's really going to depend on, and this pains me to say it, it's really going to depend on the politics of that network and the politics of their viewership. Because like it or not, that things like cancel culture have made it into Canada. Oh
yeah.
It hurts me to say that. It does. Because one thing that makes me very proud to be Canadian is how much diversity and acceptance we have here. So the fact that cancel culture has made any headway here is aberrant to me. And so it's really going to depend on the network and the audience that they're going for and how much they're going to listen to groups like that.
Mm-hmm. You made a great point earlier. I mean, we've talked about Charles Barkley. Charles Barkley, I'm sure you know a little bit about him, but he's been kicked out of almost every casino in the country here. He owes lots of money, but he's polarizing, and people like him because he knows the sport. And so even though he says things that people don't like, There's plenty of people who don't like him, but I use Howard Stern's comment from the movie. What was it, the Private Parts,
Private
where
Parts, yeah, I
the
remember
guy
that.
the guy comes up and says, "Well, what are we going to do?" And he says, "Well, he's like they're showing the numbers, and he's like, wow, this is amazing." And he says, "But how is it people that people don't like him?" And he says, "Yeah, but people tune in not either for two reasons: one, because of what he says, or two, to find out what he is going to say." And it's like those. That's kind of the same thing, but Charles Barkley. But you made the big point right there. No, Rush Limbaugh. Rush Limbaugh got thrown out of his position. This guy that is a voice for a culture. I would put him, and I don't know, I don't listen to him a lot. I worked at a radio station he started out at, so I have that little 5 seconds of fame bit to it. No, but he got thrown out because he took Oxycontin, cheated on his wife, whatever. I mean, there's a lot of different things that happen, and he's a loudmouth and he says things that people don't like. So people said, "Look, you're nothing but a hypocrite.
Yeah.
You're talking about druggies ruining the country. You're talking about adulterous, politicians. You're talking about this. You're talking about that. But you do the same thing." And they threw him out. But he came back, and people still listened to him. People still wanted to hear him. He has a radio show still. I think he still has either online. He has his own website that he has his stuff or something like that. But I think he's even on some network. He came back, and he still has that viewership because people want to watch him. You either love him or you hate him, and I think that has something to say. It's fine because how many people are going to tune in and inundate that place with, "I hate this guy, but I have to watch hockey, so I guess I'll deal with it." I mean, because you can't say that anybody that got mad about this, the cancel culture, whoever, you can't say that they were watching this just waiting to see him say something wrong. They were watching it because hockey was on, right?
Right.
You don't watch a football game if you don't want to watch football. You don't watch it because you want to see Howie Long or Terry Bradshaw say something bad or wrong. You don't watch it for that because if you're not into football, you don't watch football. So these people watch hockey. If you put them back on, are they going to stop watching hockey? I think that maybe that's what I'm saying. Sometimes that saying, "We understand you don't like this guy, but we're going to take that chance thinking that you're still going to tune in."
Right.
I agree completely with the fact that I think he was taken out of context. What I hear there is everybody should, because he does start off very well with the fact that I was talking with a veteran, and I live in where was it, the area that he was talking about?
Mississauga.
Yeah, Mississauga. He says, "I live there, and nobody wears it there. Nobody wears it in downtown Toronto." He's basically labeling everybody, not just a person or not just a group. And then he has that word or those two words, "you people." It's very obvious that he wasn't necessarily trying to point out a group in this particular instance. Now, I have seen things looking at this today and at other times. I have seen things where he has specifically stated groups. But in this instance,
that's Don Cherry.
Yeah, exactly. But is this the instant of, this fish got taken by the little bait and not the big bait? You knew the fish was going to bite, but he bit really lightly, and that's what got him. Because when I hear him talk about the French and the this and that, and when he's pointing out these things, these comments and these people, and he's labeling a direct group, what caused that not to do this? And then the "you people," it's the tone and the words. It's like nobody wants to hear that. Mm-hmm. Your teacher, well, you kids, you people, you idiots. It's putting two words together with "you" in it.
Yeah.
And saying it in a manner that is forceful, I guess I would say. because he points at the screen. He gets very adamant about it, and I understand. I understand the adamant side of that, but there is a right way and a wrong way.
There is.
So son of a red shirt.
Don Cherry going after the Quebec hockey teams. We have two. I don't even know if the Quebec Nordiques are still playing. But it's been so long since I watched hockey. And and the Montreal Canadiens, or the Habs. But when Don Cherry goes after Quebec hockey teams, it's kind of like it's like a sportscaster going after the rival team, basically. And there's just years of rivalry going on there. And I can't call it bigotry so much as I say, a sense of rivalry, a sense that, you know what, these people are in sports, a competing team, very well put together team, very respected team, that for years and years back, that I don't even know where it got started, that Don just feels a sense of antagonism for, and feels the need to basically talk the smack to the opposing team. That's how I've always seen it. I've never seen it as bigotry, more as just smack talk.
Okay.
So, but the situation with the comments last Saturday is just, my personal take on it is one of the reasons it would have gotten so far out of hand. Apparently, the Canadian broadcasting standards got so many complaints, their servers crashed.
Ooh, yeah.
Yeah, and I would have to, and yeah, I think part of that came from people who watch hockey. But when I see a lot of complaints, like I've looked into this too, I tried to look into it both ways. And I see people who are very shocked and surprised that Don Cherry is so confrontational. And I look at that and just go, do you even Don Cherry? Do you even watch hockey? This is
exactly.
Yeah, it's so I have to wonder, like, are these people really hockey viewers, or are these people just part of the Twitter mob that smelled blood in the water and went for it?
Yeah, you see, and that's where I wonder about this. I've always asked, I don't want, even if I'm attacked or talked bad about or whatever, I don't want somebody to feel sorry for me because of my race, my creed, my color, my religion, anything. I don't want somebody to just feel sorry for me because that they're like, oh, I'm offended for you. I don't need you to be offended for me. I need you to actually understand why I'm offended. But don't be offended for me. You have no reason to be offended for me. And I think that's the issue here is that too many people take it to shove their nose into something and get outraged, even though they don't have outrage. There's no reason to be outraged themselves.
Exactly.
I'd love to see a statistic on this of how many people are actually expats and immigrants who are actually offended by this. I would love to see an actual graph or something about this. Go around. Are you an expat? Are you an immigrant? Were you offended by Don Cherry? I want to know, one, are they offended or are they not? Do they think he needs to be reinstated or not? If they're hockey fans, or are they? Okay, right there. One, first question on the poll: are you a hockey fan or are you not? If you're not, drop it. Two, if you are a hockey fan, did you hear about Don Cherry's comments? Yes. Were you offended by them? Yes. Okay. No. Okay. Breaking this down like that would actually show you where the outrage comes from. Because I'm kind of, you see, I think that's what people should do. Let's find where that outrage really is.
Exactly.
Is it the people that took offense to it who actually have some reason to take offense to it? Or are we talking about Canadians who have just nothing better to do in the day but get outraged because they don't like the guy?
Right.
And if they don't like the guy, they don't like hockey, and they're just there to start trouble, well, then aren't they just as bigoted and, are they just as bigoted and opinionated as he? And that's the worst part of cancel culture, is that these people point out bigotry, they point out these problems, yet they do it in a way that's just about as toxic as the things that they're trying to point out.
I think you and I know even worse. I mean, there's been, let's not get into it, but we've seen situations where people have been stalked, harassed, threatened, assaulted by cancel culture for no other reason than, you know what, they disagree with me.
Exactly.
So yes, I would call many proponents in cancel culture to be even worse than actual bigots, because these people are just, to make the analogy again, just sharks looking for blood in the water.
Yes, indeed. And with that, we'll talk about really quick. Let's talk really quick about his co-host and how he handled this. Because you said that Don Cherry, there is this rumor, rumbling, whatever, that he fought for his co-host's job to get him to stay on the show.
That's what I've been hearing ever since the fire. Keep in mind that when it comes to sports, I'm much more of a skiing person and hiking person myself. So the only time I've watched hockey is when visiting with family or friends that watch it for a very long time. So, but I do keep up with it. I do keep up with the personalities. I do read articles and see who's in the playoffs and who's not. But it's not something that I follow and watch every game. So I know people are probably advocating exporting me from Canada for saying that.
But what did his co-host do? You said originally his co-host stood behind his behind Don Cherry and said, "Hey, he shouldn't be fired," or what he said was okay.
Yep, I want to pull up the article right now. So just a second here. So this is what was said. Don Cherry's, and I'm reading this from thescore.com, an article that was published on the 11th. So Don Cherry made remarks which were hurtful, discriminatory, which were flat out wrong, McLean said. We know diversity is the strength of the country. We see it in the travels with our show and with Hockey Night in Canada. So I owe you an apology too. That's the big thing I want to emphasize. I sat there, did not catch it, did not respond. So, yeah, basically, and Don Cherry basically responds saying, you know what, I'm not mad, I'm just disappointed. Those comments pretty much buried me. What you heard about that?
Yeah, and I mean, it is something to be said for a co-host to say, hey, I mean, because there's 1,000 ways that could have been done. That he could have, and Son of a Red Shirt does say right here that it is completely true. Don Cherry did stand up for Ron McLean.
Yeah, I tried looking for stories on that. If you can maybe post a link in the chat or send it in to us, that would be fantastic. I'd like to go through that story because I tried looking for it, but I wasn't able to find it.
So, sorry, I'm trying to do a couple things. So
no problem.
And basically, the way I see this is that he could have said, hey, I understand the outrage, but let's stop for a second and let's hear his side of things. Let's see what he has to say about this, because I don't think he meant it the way it's being taken, and I think we needed to have a bit of pause to think exactly what was said, and was it about the, if it's just about the you people, fine. Let's make sure he understands that, and let's hear what he has to say. And like you said, I should have said everybody. And again, at the beginning, it sounded like he was going down that line, but he didn't finish that way. So
no, he didn't.
there's better ways that his co-host could have handled that. Much better ways. So.
I think so too. I think the most respectful way would have been for him to do a no comment and maybe speak with Don and come up with a joint statement, or just really to delay making a statement just to honor his friend.
Yeah, and that would have been a very good way to handle it. So.
Because that's a friendship of more than 30 years.
Mm-hmm.
That's between men. That's something you don't throw away so easily.
No, and especially if he had fought for him before.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
And I guess this, I would look at it this way. It shows that Don Cherry does have pause. If it's true that he fought for that guy's job, he could have very well said on the camera or whenever he was interviewed about it, having fought for his job, I would have hoped he would have at least tried to fight for mine. He could have, but he didn't. So
all he said was, "I'm disappointed." That's it.
Yeah.
Didn't throw him under the bus. That's all he said was, "I am disappointed." And
perhaps Don Cherry looks at it as if I take the high road here, maybe it'll show I have some ability to learn from this situation.
I agree.
So he might be thinking about his possible future. But if he's already going for a podcast and he's already doing it that way, I think that a lot of us can admit that you can get sometimes nowadays much better viewership and much better numbers by going online. And somebody like him going online, that means if you don't want to see him, you don't have to see him, but he can still go on. I would find it funny if he went on at the same time that he always did. And
it wouldn't
outranks the numbers of whatever they do.
It wouldn't surprise me if he gets a good viewership that he does.
Yeah, and I agree with Mads Mama Bear. Ron could have diffused it instead of throwing him under the bus, and that's typical. But at this point, obviously, he's thinking of himself, and he's like, "Well, I'm still on the show, so I get it now. It's my show now."
Yeah.
And so there is something to be said about that. But I will laugh if he goes on at the exact time. He figures out, okay, this is when they're going on. Go live, boom, and tell people that. And then when they see the numbers, during that intermission, during Coach's Corner, our ratings went down, and they were the lowest we've ever seen during that show. Where'd they go? We think we know. Here's what Don Cherry's numbers looked like. And then, with that being said, I guess that would be the way that he has his way back. They're like, oh, crap, we can't have this. We can't have him leaving for...
Sorry.
How long is the intermissions?
About 20 minutes.
20 minutes. So 20-minute show.
10 minutes long.
A 20-minute show.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So if you lose those ratings or those people for that length of time, that's a lot of money. Because I'm sure TV is the same way as it is down here. It's all about your advertisements, the viewership numbers, all of that. And if you get that, yeah. So this is what Son of a Red Shirt says. It took place from Ron McLean was in contract negotiations with CBC, and CBC were suggesting that they were willing to let him go. Cherry said that the show just would not be the same without him. And says, sorry, I can't be more helpful. I'm watching on a tablet.
It's okay.
Well, we
man.
appreciate you watching. And for I take it, Red Shirt, you are from Canada. I guess. I don't know for sure. I'm sorry. Mads Mama Bear, I believe you are too. So I appreciate those of you who are from Canada who have tuned in, and thank you very much. This right here is the Wheel of Names. This is how most people get picked. I want to say, though, first off, Chad, you graciously agreed to come on tonight to fill a slot, and I greatly appreciate it. Your name was on the Wheel of Names. I've taken it off because you are now on the show, and you go on to what I call the new Wheel of Names, which is everybody who's been on the show. So And we're really quick before we go there, we're going to say Cherry is a loudmouth, brash, and sometimes obnoxious, but in his heart, he has been and always will be a gentleman and a fantastic ambassador for not only hockey, but Canada herself.
I can't help but agree with that 100%. I think that a man is much more than the words that they say. It's who they are at heart.
Exactly.
And I think you need, whenever you listen to someone, you got to listen to more than the words. You got to listen to the heart and the soul of where they're coming from.
Mm-hmm.
And Don Cherry, he's always been confrontational.
Go ahead.
He's always been loud. He's always been a sportsman at heart. Mm-hmm. And sportsmen are going to be confrontational. They live for the sport, which is, some say it's a metaphor for war. Some say it is war, period. Just war with rules.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but that doesn't mean that he doesn't have virtue and that he doesn't have that principles that he stands for. And I think he's shown them. Mm-hmm. He could have backed down just like Ron McLean did. He didn't have to walk back to comments after he was fired. He didn't have to be so nice to Ron McLean after he was thrown under the bus. No. He's taken the high road at every turn, despite everyone else taking the very, very low road.
Yeah. Mads Malver says, I won't watch Coach's Corner without him. I'll watch the game on a different channel. And that's exactly what I think a lot of people will do. So, all right. Now, before we spin the wheel of names, Chad, go ahead and tell everybody where they can find you and what you're about one more time.
So I'm just a normal Canadian boy, fan of the arts and, of course, of winter sports like skiing. You can find me on my YouTube channel, which is in the description, as well as on Esmule, where you can listen to my wonderful vocals sing any number of Christmas carols under the Spoony Bard.
Yes, especially Baby It's Cold Outside, the non-woke version. Remember that. Check that out, because I heard that. That was very good. I love that song. And like you said, you made a good point that it is just flirting, and there's nothing wrong with it. But let people say what they will say. Okay, guys, we're going to spin this. Do you see all the people that are on there, all the names? Who do you think it's going to land on? Who do you think it's going to land on?
I am going to go with Ruthie.
Ruthie. Here we go. Round and round and round it goes.
All the names, turn and turn. Tell us the name we should learn.
Okay, now the Geek in Disguise, I know he's changed his name, and we will check that out, and I will see what his schedule looks like. So we will make sure we do that. Remember that all the people picked by the Wheel of Names are based solely off of the fact that if their schedule is making it so they can appear, they will appear. We always have to double check. So, guys, thank you for watching tonight. Chad, thank you very much. Great topic and great talk. I hope you share this with people up there, because this is definitely more of a Canadian thing.
I will.
But I love talking about this stuff. That's why I have you guys on, is to talk about things that you're passionate about, or things that you see as things that need to be talked about. And this is something that needs to be talked about, because we do see both sides of this. We do understand that what he said, how he said it, was not necessarily appropriate. But what he was saying, per se, at the heart of it, was sincere.
Exactly.
And not against anybody in general.
And I think that in life, you can disagree with a person, you can hate a person even. That's all fine and good. But when it comes to outright canceling them, and trying to harm them on such a basic level, no. That's absolutely going too far, and I think that's something that even good people can sometimes fall into. To quote the Joker, insanity is like gravity. All it takes is one little push.
Exactly.
And even normal people can go into outrage, can fall into outrage culture if something affects them on a personal level, and maybe go a little too far with it. So I think this is a good topic to discuss.
Yes. It's always important to keep your own beliefs to you and stay true to them.
Exactly.
It's okay to hear both sides of the story. And it's okay not to agree.
And it's okay not to even like someone. But when you go after them maliciously, that's when things have gone way too far. And that's where I think
Exactly.
Western culture we're in a place where this has become too common. I think you and I, we
Exactly.
both may not like certain personalities in Hollywood and certain studios and certain practices, but I don't think you and I would ever advocate the utter cancellation of any individual.
Absolutely not. I always say, when it comes to Hollywood, I don't like you because of who you are. I don't listen to what you say. You don't have any say in what I do. You don't have any say in the way I vote. But if you're a good actor and I like your movies, then I like you. That's all I base it off of. I don't know who the person is. And so if you liked the Coach's Corner, this one comment, because it came from him and the person he is, shouldn't make you want to destroy what the Coach's Corner was, which was, let's be honest, it was his show. So, yeah. All right. Well, with that said, thank you very much, Chad. I appreciate you. Everybody, we're going to say goodbye and goodbye.
Goodbye.
Oh, well, let's go like this. See?